And it's like they're having me here, and no offense to you, but like, what the hell do you know about helping me or someone like me? You're not a woman. You're not a mom. Like,
Right.
no offense to you, but
Yeah.
those are the things that I value in being a mom. Yeah.
So I think it's really common for us to want to get information from people who are similar to us, who relate to us. And so you said
you don't relate to me.
Right. Yeah. And that's okay.
And you're
that's
agreeing
okay.
with me that you don't relate to me.
Yeah. Now, let me understand, when you go take your break, right? Is there anything that happens in that break, that weekend getaway, that would jeopardize you being a good parent? Jeopardize you being a good mom?
You know damn well the answer to that, because
well, what is it?
I'm sure my folks have already told you and given you the drill on what.
Yeah, but Tammy, that's what they said. I'm more concerned with what you tell me.
There was a video.
Right.
Okay, they're concerned. I was out. We went to Vegas this one weekend. This friend of a friend from work, and we went to Vegas. And I know they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And I was doing some stuff in the video. How are you all feeling these role play exercises that we're doing? A lot of you might recognize that voice or that face from previous seasons of I Know I'm Crazy with Naja. I'm going to read off a bit of Chris's bio for those of you that don't remember him, or you need a refresher, or you're being introduced to him for the first time. But one of the realest things that we can say about Chris is he's a regular guy who's been through hell and back. And one of his life missions is to try to keep others from going down the same path. He's a licensed clinical social worker. He's been working in the field of mental health treatment for 20 years. Chris is the founder of Hobble Creek Behavioral Health and a nonprofit organization called Heal the Hurt, which provides support to individuals and families who don't have the resources needed to access appropriate care. He's been trained in trauma work, including EDMR and trauma-focused CBT, mindfulness, meditation practices, brain reactivation therapy, and immoral reclination therapy. Did I say that right? Chris treats PTSD, anxiety, depression, relationship issues, religious, spiritual disconnect, and traumas, and life challenges. I raved about him years ago, and I'm still raving about him, so much so that I had to ask him to come back for this brand new season. So without further ado, welcome to another episode of I Know I'm Crazy with Naja. You guys know, as we crank up season 3, I'm bringing back some of my favorites and you guys' favorites. I'm sitting here with my friend Chris. You can see Chris right here on the screen with me. So I had Chris on the podcast back on our first season, Chris? Was I just launching?
Yeah.
So it's literally been years, but you know how you talk to somebody and then you feel like you would be friends in real life if you had a chance to meet them in real life? That's how it was instantly. Chris was like a hot cup of cocoa on a chilly day. And I don't love cocoa and I don't love chilly days. But when I met Chris, it was like that. I was like, we need this dude. Like, he's the type of person that he needed. As you guys heard from his illustrious introduction, which really doesn't do him justice. Chris, I need you to first and foremost just bring us up to speed on what's been going on since you and I spoke. Gosh, all those years ago. What you been doing, friend?
It's probably been, golly, it's so good to see you. It's probably been 6 or 7 years.
No, it has no.
It has, yeah. I remember exactly where I was when we recorded. My goodness, and I'm not in that office anymore. I left working in residential addiction treatment, and I opened up my own practice.
Yes.
I have a mental health, behavioral health clinic here in Utah, and we just hit our 5-year mark. So, well, maybe I should say it's been at least five years, but it was winter. Yeah. I know that much. So,
yes.
Anyway, but yeah, I've just been living that world, running a mental health, behavioral health clinic.
Wow.
We do a lot of addiction work, a lot of trauma work, a lot of just a variety of things that way. We treat the whole person. So we don't put the Band-Aids on and go, ooh, just don't look at it. It'll go away. We are literally talking about the pain, the ugly stuff. So that's what we jive in.
Whew, that's tough work, Chris. And you guys know I'm not big on repetitive questions. So I'm going to link the other podcasts that Chris and I did together so he can get into the crux of what his business is, because I want to talk about what's new. Now, you've since opened up a new center, and I rarely get to sit down with people that are in the thick of things, dealing with human beings, like at a grassroots level, hitting the core of our problems. And I want to talk a lot about addiction today, especially culturally and societally, where we are now. Are there any upticks in particular types of addiction that you're seeing and I know you're in Utah, but any demographic or age changes? What have you seen since you and I first talked? Like, what changes have you seen?
Wow, we're gonna probably talk for about 4 or 5 hours today. That's mostly a joke, but we've been introduced to fentanyl. That
Oof.
wasn't something that we really talked about when you and I first met.
No.
We're seeing people using substances, and I'm gonna identify substance addiction and then behavioral addictions. And for me, I view those things as the same. That's on a broad level.
Break it down for us.
To me, a drug is a drug is a drug, meaning I'm an addict. I'm in recovery. We can look at, does that mean you love cocaine? Does that mean you love alcohol? Does that mean you love gambling, sex, theft, crime, adrenaline rushes and those kinds of things, pills,
social media?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, for example, when I worked in residential treatment for addiction, family members would come in and they'd go, why can't they just stop? Like, don't you see all the problems this is causing in your life? Why won't you just stop using? Like, you don't want to be dead, do you? You don't want your wife to leave you, do you? You don't want your job to fire you, do you? Well, of course not.
So just stop.
Yeah. And it doesn't work that way if somebody's truly addicted. And there's a difference between I really like this, I really like the escape, and then I can't stop doing this.
Can't means I physiologically, it's in my, like, I know when you try heroin for the first time, don't they say that's like an automatic lifelong addiction because it attaches, and I don't know the science behind it, but is it like that when they say, I can't, like, I physically need this or I will die or feel like I'm dying?
Yeah. There's a video by a mentor of mine, a really great guy, called Pleasure Unwoven. His name is Dr. Kevin McCauley, and he talks openly that he's an addict. He's also a physician. He's also former military, and he jokes in that he did his treatment in Leavenworth. So he was in prison as a result of his addiction issues, right? So in that film, it's kind of a documentary, and he drives around a little bit. It's very pretty parts of Utah.
But he's talking about.
But he identifies the science behind it, and so if somebody's very interested in that, I highly recommend checking out Pleasure Unwoven. I actually think you can get it on YouTube. Okay. Every time I loan out my DVD, it doesn't come back, and so it's continually on my Amazon wish list to get a new copy so that I can loan it out to people. But the reason I brought that up is because there's a scene in that film where he says, for the alcoholic, if you were to say, here's a drink, and you put a shot in front of them, and you say, but if you drink that, I'm going to shoot you in the head. Most of us would go, well, I'm not going to do that.
Thank you. I don't want it.
Yeah, we have refusal skills. Whereas the true addict or alcoholic would go, and he says these 3 things. He's not really going to shoot me.
Ooh.
The second one is, I wonder if there are really bullets in that gun. The third one is crippling for me. Going through the mind of the alcoholic is, and again, let's talk about, I do trauma work. There is no addict in this world who doesn't have trauma. Addiction comes from pain. It comes from trauma. Okay. So the third thing that Macaulay says from that alcoholic is, I wonder if the alcohol will enter my bloodstream before the bullet comes crashing through my skull. That is addiction. That is desperation. That is a level of dependence that most people don't understand, and I pray they will never understand it. So with that, when family members would come in, we'd show them this video, or Macaulay would speak to the families. We had access to him here locally. It was wonderful.
He would come in and explain to the family to try to evoke compassion and say, your family member, because it sounded like you're faced with a bullet or this, your vice, this human being, they start to rationalize, will the bullet be so bad? I need this thing.
Right.
I love the way you put it.
An addict will learn over time that escape, that numbing from whatever is the pain, is worth whatever misery goes on. Now, in sobriety, when somebody's calm, present, mindful, when they're not intoxicated, they most often will speak rationally and go, yeah, I don't know why this keeps happening. But it's when the stress level goes up that we then say, I can't handle this anymore. And that's why that pattern continues and resumes over and over and over again, because addiction is a disease of choices, and it's brought on so often by stress. And so when you and
as we say, like, I'm doing this to cope, I'm self-medicating with my addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a normal, what quote unquote, whatever that looks like, can say, man, it was a really hard day. I need to go to the spa, or I need a Diet Coke, or I need a cheeseburger, or I need to put my feet up. Can I turn on stand-up comedy? Those kinds of things. I need to go to the gym. Yeah. Where it's the same thing, but we as a society have determined, and rightfully, we've determined that using drugs as the escape brings consequences. And also there's a change in the brain that takes place when somebody's truly addicted. But we would invite the families, if you want to see a small snippet of what your loved one who's here in treatment is going through, quit drinking Diet Coke for 30 days, quit going to the salon for 30 days, or the spa, or
your thing that makes Oreos. You feel good.
Yep. Whatever that like my vice is, cigarettes is so often a thing as well. Quit drinking soda, which out here in Utah, there's a place called Swig or So Delicious or whatever. They're like on every door. I probably shouldn't say their names, right? But there's a soda store on every corner. That's one of our big vices out here.
It's so accessible. And it's sugar, guys. Like, sugar addiction is leading to so many diseases.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to something you said, and I really want to find that piece of the documentary. Hopefully, if I can find a clip, maybe I can share a few snippets with permission here in the podcast so people can see what you're talking about. But you said addiction comes from trauma. Addiction comes from trauma. And you mentioned that you yourself, what do you say? Do you say, were you an addict or are you an addict? Is it like
my verbiage, the wording that I use is I'm in recovery, or I'm recovering. Okay. I'm not recovered. I still blow it all the time. I still make mistakes. Now, my mistakes that I make are not like what they were on Halloween of the year 2010.
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of my last hurrah of craziness. That doesn't mean I've never done anything wrong since that point in time, but that's the last time that I didn't know what was going on around me. I was so blitzed.
Okay. And I kind of feel like, we are in a lot of instances, to get us to stop, we have to have this rock bottom moment. So it sounds like that was your rock bottom moment. And you're just looking up like, okay, this is it.
I love that phrase. And I will say this, when I started using substances when I was 14, a friend of mine, we were in between classes. It was in junior high school. And a friend of mine said, hold out your hand. And he gave me a couple of pills. He said, take those. And because I'd had trauma when I was younger, because I wanted to fit in, because this kid was cool, he was a friend of mine.
You did it. Prefrontal cortex isn't formed. Our little
all those
brains
things
at 14.
Yep. And so I did that, and it was, some parts were, this is amazing. And then other parts were, I don't like not having control over my mind and my actions. Right. So that's always been a scary thing, but that euphoria was so incredible, so powerful. So there were times in my early adolescence where like I'd get in trouble, I'd get caught or whatever. And so then I'd like not do those things for 3 years or something like that. And I'd go, I've got 3 years. Like I'm flying high. I'm good. And I'd become complacent. Right. And then we start to make decisions that lead us back down an unfortunate path. And so now I'm very strong in saying, I don't care how much time someone has, like in recovery, we have today.
Okay.
Because all I'm focused on is making good choices today. Tomorrow's a different thing, right? And so that's where I don't know if I developed Do Your Dailies when I had developed Do Your Dailies when we first talked. It was in its infancy. Yes. And so literally my alarm goes off at 5:01 every day. And some days I snooze, right? Some days I struggle, but it's got to go 5:01. It can't be 5 because all the 5 o'clock club people, it's 5 o'clock. I've got to be a little different, little off.
Okay. Right? 5:01, you're different.
5:01, but some form of prayer or spirituality, meditation, physical movement. Some days it's stretching. Some days it's very brief, but some days I'd go jogging, right? Or I'd go outside. I have a dog. I'd take my dog out for a walk or something like that. Fluids, like hydrating, good nutrition. I've got a whole regimen now that I go downstairs and open up the fridge and there's some good things that I'll put into my system, to help with my focus and memory and cognition and all of those kinds of things. They also de-stress us because I know we don't get to escape stress in this world, but we can manage it. And I don't want to go back down those same paths as before. And I'll be very blunt. I'm so lucky because many of the kids that when I was a teenager, many of the kids that I used with are dead. They're overdosed. My town, our school, and within my age group and the two above us, very high instance of overdose specifically from heroin. And so I feel very blessed that, we won't go into all that, but I feel very blessed that it was actually my brother who, back in the day, I said, man, he ratted me out. But today he
saved your life.
Exactly.
He came and yanked you and saved your life.
Yeah.
So at 14 years old, when we are not equipped to make, hell, I know a lot of grown-ups, 34, 44, not equipped to make those formidable, because that was a life and death crossroads situation that you were handed at 14 years old, no capacity to decipher. God, I remember being, a club kid in my 20s going to Miami to Space Nightclub for the first time that didn't start till 6 a.m. and, being offered pills. And I'm not going to say what I did or didn't. Y'all, I've talked about my partying on here. But just even thinking, not having the capacity to say no. And a lot of parents, Chris, I want to, this is not what today's pod is about, but there are a lot of parents that listen to this. How did you hide it from your folks? Because I'm sure your folks were involved. I'm sure. How did you hide it? And what do parents need to look for?
Are you ready to take your beauty routine up a notch? Maybe your look is already perfection, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with editing your beauty bag. Make a statement with Naja Hall Beauty. We deliver intense multi-chrome eyeshadows, kiss-proof lipsticks, and ageless skincare that brightens and hydrates. Bold looks, effortless results. Shop Naja Hall Beauty today, where audacious and unbothered beauty begin.
I have the most incredible parents, but maybe the downside is a belief that everything was perfect, a desire for everything to be perfect, that sometimes we ignore clues, we ignore red flags, right? And so I was very skilled. Actually, we had in our basement, we had a kind of a storage area where, like some of the kids' rooms were in the basement, right? At this time. And we had like a second fridge and freezer and like some food storage shelving back there. And it wasn't a finished part of the basement. And I notched out a little nook and cranny kind of a thing and hid pills, marijuana, and would go there when everyone else was kind of asleep.
Parents are not looking back there at that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I got away with it. Or other people I'd go spend time with and they had it and maybe both parents were working and, they were even kind of not checked in on, as much. And so for parents, ask questions,
because if it's not the obvious, like you haven't found anything under your kid's mattress or you haven't noticed any behavioral changes. It could really, especially as a teenager, because teenagers are already kind of jerks. And they're detached and they're not wanting to be involved. They're not talkative. But what specific questions? I mean, aside from saying, hey, are you on drugs? Are you doing anything? Because a kid is going to lie.
Yes.
What question can we look our kid in the face and ask? And I know it's kid dependent, but.
Right. It is. It's very, I appreciate that you said that because this advice or this suggestion or counsel may be the opposite for some people. So I do tell parents, use your intuition, but use it. Don't sense something like something's off, but I'm just going to, please, no, don't let it be, not my child. Like it won't happen. It won't happen in my house. And I've counseled with so many moms in particular who said, I just thought if I kept him home, he wouldn't be at least homeless on the street, or he would die on the street. He'd overdose, or he'd get cold in the winter or something like that. And they end up overdosing in mom's basement, kind of a thing. So use that intuition, but be brave and be courageous and ask tough questions. Yeah. But we have to understand that there's a time for this and there's a place for this. And so I would encourage people to say to their child, there are going to be times in your life where you make decisions and some trouble comes. I'm here for you. I may not always be thrilled with the choices that you make. And I've said this to one of my children. I am always going to be your dad. I will always love you, no matter what you do. Again, I may be upset, I may be confused and those kinds of things, but I'm here, right? And so how can we convey to our kids, in particular, if you have questions about drugs, addiction, relationships, sex, whatever it is, I'm safe. Now, that doesn't mean it feels comfortable. It's super awkward. Like no one wants to talk to their parents about those things. But if a parent can lead out and make it a reasonably, or at least seek out a reasonably comfortable relationship and situation that way, kids are more likely to say, hey, this happened. You know? And so if, let's say your child comes to you and says, you know what, we got drunk last weekend. Mom or dad, you cannot freak out. As much as you want to, as much as you feel like you need to, stay present. And you might say to your child, hey, will you give me a couple of minutes? And you go breathe and you do grounding techniques and those kinds of things, right? That's good. Because the nervous system, that stress level going on, you may lose control, right? Mm-hmm. We're not excusing that, but we're identifying that can happen. And so you may say, hey, I need a couple of minutes. Will it be okay if we just take a little break, take a little time out? But then we come right back to it. That's a good mechanism to demonstrate to your young person too. Like, hey, we don't have to address everything right now. That's teaching. That's a teachable moment for your kid. Because now when they're presented with something that's less than favorable, they can tell a friend, a partner, a teacher, hey, I need to take a minute. Mm-hmm. So parent, because if you freak out in front of your kid and they're about to tell you something that could be very detrimental, or it feels like the end of the world to them, and you freak out, there goes their safe space. Yeah. There goes your connect. You just decimated probably the biggest opportunity for you to connect with your child and be cool and to actually come in and help them. Some parents will say, well, it's not my job to be their friend. No, you're right. But you don't have to be this like authority figure, drill sergeant, no disrespect to the military personnel, right? But it's like, what does the child need? As opposed to what's going on as a parent, as opposed to if I'm mad and I'm reacting, that's very different from how can I nurture this person? Because this person that you're charged with putting out into the world just to be a good human being. Like that's literally our jobs. And so you're chastising them. And I guess that's a part of adults getting their own emotions in check. That's a whole nother podcast though. Yeah, it sure is. I think when you go, you're going to have to come back and we're literally going to have to talk about us as grownups, especially looking at the world and the state of the world and all these things that we have to disagree on, keeping our emotions in check. I want to go back to addiction being, it comes from trauma. That's such a wide statement. I don't feel like it's a generalized statement, but what if a person can say, well, no, I just like doing this, Chris. I like doing the pills. I like doing the fentanyl. I'm not traumatized. I don't have any trauma. Where do you start with somebody like that? Wait, okay, Chris, I'm sorry. No, wait a minute. So there's a segment on the podcast, a brand new segment on the podcast that I started doing. It's called Role Play. And I think this is actually the perfect part for the role play. I'm going to be your in denial client, but my family has brought me here and I'm telling you there's nothing wrong with me. And you're trying to teach me about unearthing traumas. And I think this is going to be a good one. Okay.
So I'm putting you on the spot, Chris. We're gonna do
I like it.
Okay, guys, y'all are ready for the role play. Now, guys, remember, every time I post one of these online, you all go off on me because I'm playing the bad guy or I'm playing the problematic person, and you leave me all sorts of comments and you cuss me out in the DMs. This is a role play, people. Let me look at the camera. This is a role play. I ain't addicted to drugs, no shade to anybody that is. This is simply a tool to help y'all's asses. Please do not cuss me out. Hey. I'm gonna put a disclaimer on the screen because they're still gonna cuss me out, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're sitting here in this session, and what do your clients call you?
Chris.
I'm gonna even change my name. My name's not gonna be Naja for this. My name is gonna be Tammy. Okay. I don't know why I chose Tammy, but today I'm Tammy, so y'all can. Naja get in character. I mean, Tammy get in character. You are Tammy. All right. So Chris, my family brought me here to you, and I recognize that, I do like partying and I have it under control, but I just don't understand like why I have to be here. And I'm really fine. Like, I look fine. I go to work every day. I put my stuff on. I do my job. Like, I'm here because they say I have to be. So I don't really have anything to say to you.
So you feel like you function. You feel like there's nothing, there's no problems in this world for you.
I don't feel like I function. I'm functioning. I'm sitting here talking to you.
Yeah. I understand that. I hear you. So this life that you're living, that the people in your life have concerns about, like, what does that give you? Why is it so good for you? Why is it so enjoyable for you? Like, it's not an issue. It's not a problem.
What do you mean? Like, because my kids are fine. Yeah. Like, on the weekends, I have a very stressful life. I don't have a lot of help. I have a stressful life. I have an autistic child who needs tons of services. I work a lot of hours, and I feel like on the weekends, if I want to drop the kids off with my parents and I go away for a weekend, or I enjoy friends, or have like a bender or whatever, I'm showing up. So you're saying, what does it do for me? I'm functioning. I'm surviving.
Well, it's giving you some relief, right? It's giving you a break.
Absolutely. Yeah. I need a break. I need help. I need a break. And my parents are great. They're helping me, but they're making me come here and sit and talk to you. And you don't even know me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And from my perspective, this is kind of a job interview for me. You're deciding if there's anything I can help you with, whether that's for the next 50 minutes or that's 6 months or a year, whatever it is. Now your parents and your family said, you got to go to talk to this guy, and here's what you're going to learn. Here's what you're going to get. Here's what's going to change. And that's all well and good, what they want. What do you want? What's important to you? What are your values?
What are my values? I value being a great mom, a great partner. I value money. I work a lot. I make great living. I value my health. I wish I could make it more of a priority. I don't have time to work out like I used to. I value rest. I value my family. Just the normal things that people value. Just the normal stuff.
So you said you value being a good mom. Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like for you?
I didn't, like, my parents, God bless them. Dad did most of the showing up for us. Mom was off working, making a living, doing whatever it was she doing. And Dad worked full time too, but he was like at home being the caretaker. And so it's really important for me to, as a woman, to not let my kids feel abandoned like I felt. Mom, and I get it. She's amazing. She's an excellent grandmother. But I just remember, needing so much from her that my dad couldn't do. He couldn't teach me about when I started my cycle, or, this cute guy. I didn't want to talk to him about stuff like that. He would go off if he, when he found out that I was dating. Oh God, he went crazy. But there was just girl stuff that I wanted, and being there for my kids is really important, and then not letting them feel like they're completely alone. Their dad is super involved. Thank goodness for that. But I feel like I got to do everything because I don't want them to feel like I felt. So me showing up, financially providing, physically being there, that's what. And gosh, I sound like a great person right now.
Yeah,
like
you
that,
do. Those are all wonderful things that you desire for your kids.
Yeah, and it's like they're having me here, and no offense to you, but like, what the hell do you know about helping me or someone like me? You're not a woman. You're not a like.
Right.
No offense to you, but those are the things that I value in being a mom. Yeah.
So I think it's really common for us to want to get information from people who are similar to us, who relate to us. And so you said
you don't relate to me.
Right. Yeah. And that's okay.
And you're agreeing with me that you don't relate to me.
Yeah. Now, let me understand, when you go take your break, right? Is there anything that happens in that break, that weekend getaway, that would jeopardize you being a good parent? Jeopardize you being a good mom?
You know damn well the answer to that, because
what is it?
I'm sure my folks have already told you and given you the drill on what.
Yeah, but Tammy, that's what they said. I'm more concerned with what you tell me.
There was a video.
Right.
Okay, there was, and they're concerned. I was out. We went to Vegas this one weekend. This friend of a friend from work, and we went to Vegas. And I know they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And I was doing some stuff in the video, and somebody posted it on TikTok, and my one of my son's friends saw it, and it wasn't favorable. And I wanted to be that super involved mom, and now here I am embarrassing my kids, and of course embarrassing myself and my family. But so some of the stuff that, like, do you want to know the stuff that happens? Like, you want me to tell you and say it? Or
I always tell my people, if there's something that you want to share with me, you're not going to offend me, you're not going to make me uncomfortable, and all those kinds of things. And that's not a challenge, right?
No, it's fine. I was doing drugs, and I was there was like a lot of us in the room, and it just got out of hand. It doesn't show me in the best light, and it wasn't me. It wasn't. When I watched it, I was like, that. I don't remember it being there. I don't remember how I got there, and it didn't look like me. The person looked like me, but that just was not me. But it was me.
Yeah, it was you. And
that was me.
That would be pretty scary to then see something, and it's you, and your eyes are telling you this is you, and you did this, and you're going, I don't remember it either that way, or I don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
that would cause me a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and some worry. Yeah.
I was freaked out.
What? Have you chatted with your kids about this, like the video that they saw, and what their feelings or thoughts are about it?
They don't really talk to me that much, especially my son. He won't even look me in the eye right now. He
since seeing it.
Yeah, no, I'll try to talk and bought him some new shoes or whatever, and he asked me not to come to his soccer game.
That's hard.
So, we live in the same house together, but they're pretty detached. My daughter, she's trying, but I've embarrassed them. We haven't talked about that though. Not that video. We haven't talked about it.
Yeah. And that might take some time to feel comfortable enough to talk about it. It will be uncomfortable, but to have.
Do I bring it up to them? Do I force them to sit down and say, hey, we need to talk? I know you guys saw it. What do I do want advice on that. I don't feel like I have.
Well, that's kind of interesting when because you feel like, you've said to me that you feel like your family has forced you to be here right now. And so that doesn't feel too great. So maybe we don't want to force your kids to have those conversations yet. But maybe you could approach them and say, I know this happened. I know you saw it. I'm here. I'm embarrassed. I wish things were different. If and when you're ready, I'm here to talk. If you have any questions, if you want to say anything to me.
Why did my family do me like that with you being here? Because it was kind of like, what's that one show when you take the actual real drug addicts and the family?
Intervention?
Yeah. And you don't give those people a choice. And I watched that show and it's so cringy. Now, a lot of those people do have major problems. But it's like, they weren't given an option. So I wish I was given an option today, but what my folks told me was, I'm going to be written out of the will. They're not going to help me. They're going to try to get the kids, like, take my kids away from me. Like, could you imagine your own parent saying that to you, and you're financially helping them? The mother that wasn't really there for me as much as she should have been is telling me that she's going to go and be a mom to my kids and legally try to take them. That's not.
That would hurt.
Yeah. So, and telling me to come and sit here and talk to a complete stranger, or else. So yeah, not having a choice sucks, because I didn't have a choice in any of this. Like my life, I didn't have a choice in any of it.
Do you feel trapped?
I feel like I'm in a jail cell, but I have the key and the door is open, but I just can't walk out because all the stuff in the cell is going to die if I walk out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel like. I could see the freedom, and I get to feel the freedom, I guess, on the weekends.
Yeah.
I get to walk out of the cell on the weekends, but I know come Sunday night, I got to go right back.
Yeah.
So it's still not complete freedom, because going back to the cell is looming, because I know it's happening. So,
and with that, it sounds like there may be a choice. You could, like your Monday through Friday, are there other options for you to not be a parent and not have that burden?
That could be like, F my kids and they can go be with grandma and grandpa. I mean,
would that be easier?
Sometimes I feel like it would.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like, but come on, like, what kind of trash would I be called? Like, what would people say if I were to shirk my responsibility, something I created, and just went off to enjoy life? I don't enjoy a lot of I enjoyed the parenthood part of it, but like the everyday, waking up at 5:45, I don't enjoy the everyday part of it, but I do get a lot of satisfaction out of the other parts.
Okay.
Talking about it now is just making me feel like a failure. Talking about how much I don't enjoy it makes me feel like a failure.
So a couple things. I'm going to sidebar for a second. You said something about, so where I might go is focusing on how much you care what other people think about you. You said that a second ago. But what I'd actually do, we'll kind of jump back into this role play. So what are the things that you do love about being a mom? Like what joy does it bring to you? Yes, there's some hard times. And Tammy, you're not alone in that feeling of like, man, this is stressful. This is overwhelming. And sometimes I just wish ...
Yeah.
That's natural. That occurs. Parenting is stressful. It's hard. This world is hard right now. There's a lot of scary things going on. What does being a mom do for you that you enjoy?
I wish you could ask me that in a moment when I'm enjoying it, because I can't find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I can't think. I mean, I can't answer that right now.
Okay.
Maybe when I'm having a good moment. This is not a good moment for me. I can't think of good things when I'm in this forced space right here, right now.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll write it down when we go for ice cream or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. There might be a quiet moment where, the show ends, or, the kids are in bed, or you haven't picked up the next task that's in your busy world yet. And you think, maybe I will write something down. Or the next time there's a play performance and you see your baby knock it out of the park and you feel proud, you might go, oh, that's right. This guy made me commit to writing down those things that I like about being a parent. And it might not even be those things I love about being a parent, but maybe what are the things that don't suck about being a parent?
Ooh, okay.
Because I'm going to meet you where you're at,
Okay.
And you touched on something a second ago, like what kind of person would that make me? What would everyone think about me if I just left my kids, if I just abandoned my kids? And I want to distinguish the difference between my need to show everyone how wonderful I am and get the praise and accolades versus what do my kids need and what's fulfilling me. Right? There's a difference, Tammy, between changing a poopy diaper every 20 minutes, and hearing the whining and the crying and the screaming and the back talk and no, I won't do that, and coloring on the walls and all those things. And then in those moments where that little one says, I love you, or thank you, or touches you and comes and gives you a hug or something like that.
That is, yeah. those are moments that, you know, when I was younger and it was a little easier before our baby, like special needs baby. I remember those moments. I haven't talked a lot. I haven't, I did mention that we had a special needs kid, but it changed because those I love yous, they kind of did make the poopy diapers and all that stuff worth it. But then when you have someone that's constantly, and our kid is nonverbal, but he screams. It's like a shrieking, piercing. There's no thank yous. There's no I love yous. Some of the thoughts that I've had, I can't say, but I just wish that this was not, I love my kid. But I just wish that I can't say it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I respect that. That's okay. There's nothing that someone should say that they feel forced to do it. But I will let you know that this is a safe place and that I make a commitment to not judge. And sometimes that's hard for people to believe. Sometimes it's hard for people to believe that they're going to say something to another human being and they're not going to go share it with somebody else. But I'm licensed. I've got an oath and my ethics require me to not tell anybody anything. And so you get a chance to open up to me. And
I can tell you, so you legally cannot share anything that me and you talk about.
Mm-hmm. And there's some exceptions to that as long as,
what are the exceptions?
If somebody's life is in danger, if there's a child or vulnerable adult being abused or neglected severely, or if you intend to go hurt someone or hurt yourself, then I've got a responsibility to protect people.
But we're talking about drug use. I mean, so I use, I'm a user. So that means I have an intention. Like if I say, after this right here, I'm going to go and see my guy and go get, that means you can report me?
Nope. No, because I mean, what are the dynamics around that? Your children that have childcare?
Yeah.
Right.
They're not in the car. They're not going with me. I mean,
right. Yeah. So if they were going in the car with you, then we'd have some things to talk about. Right. But if they're in a safe place, again, and Tammy, it's not whether I approve of your behaviors or not. That's not my role. My intention in this. Do you think I have
a problem?
I don't know that. I don't know. Do you want me to address that? If so,
I mean, we've only been. This is my first session with you. Yeah. I know what you've been told about me, so I've told you some things that I realize are not favorable. But it's like
I don't think that makes you a bad person. I don't think that makes you a bad mom. I don't think that makes you a bad partner. And maybe your parents, maybe they said, Tammy, you're an addict and you got to go talk to this guy to get fixed.
That's basically exactly what they said.
I see a lot of people, and some people have addiction issues. Some people have problems resulting from using drugs or alcohol, problems from going away for the weekend and spending their entire paycheck or not being able to come up with rent or mortgage payment or buy groceries.
Right. I am not those people. I'm not like walking around tattered and selling myself, and my bills are completely fine. So that's okay. You know what? End the role play. Chris, you are very patient because I was trying to be a jerk client to you.
That was nothing though compared to.
I know, but you're very difficult for me to be mean to. So I don't think I did a great job at being like, next time when you do a role play, I'm gonna have to like probably get in full costume and I'm gonna come at you hard. But you're very patient. I like how you didn't talk much about yourself, but you interjected enough to let me know, like, nah, I'm right here with you. How do you make the determination when you're dealing, because you're a therapist, you're a licensed therapist, and you do work online, you interview on podcasts, I'm waiting on your book to come out. You haven't mentioned anything about a book, right?
No, not yet.
Well, I'm waiting on it, Chris. Okay. Waiting on the book because I know you got a book in you. But you're very vulnerable and transparent about sharing a lot of your own experiences, your own traumas, your own recovering process. Do you feel like you overshare with like online? Because has that ever deterred a client from being like, oh, I know too much? And I hear a lot of therapists, especially ones with online presences, they want to present this very polished persona, but why do you share with us so much of yourself?
It's a really good question. If I come into the space and I feel like you don't get it, I'm going to clam up. I'm not going to feel safe. But if you understand a little bit of what I'm going through, even if I don't realize what I'm going through, right, I'm going to let the walls down. And so with friends, with peers, if I'm at some kind of speaking engagement or sharing parts of my story and that kind of thing, like almost everything's an open book. You know, there's some things where it's like, I'm not going to go there, or I've moved on from that, or that's in the past, or, you know, I've dealt with that with God, or whatever it is. But most things, it's, if you've got a question, like, let's talk about that. But there's also a complexity to that. There, in my world, I don't think there are a whole lot of yes or no absolutes. Like, there's some middle ground.
Yeah.
And that's hard when because I have 5 children now. The last time we spoke, I think I had, 2.
Wow.
3. Anyway, because if I give instructions or, clean up your room or turn off your lights or whatever it is, why? What's the reason? Well, here's the reason. Well, what about this? Or you don't always do it, or something like that. Like there are, I don't want to say excuses. There are exceptions to the rule. Now, if I'm being a stinker, well, I'm the exception. So I can justify anything up in my head if I want it badly enough. I'll do the mental gymnastics and all those things to make it good. But I don't know that I've heard somebody say to me, or I haven't gotten the feedback of oversharing. But I would imagine that if someone felt like I did, they wouldn't come see me. They'd go find somebody else who is a little more stoic. And you don't need to know my last name or how many children I have, or if I've ever been in your shoes, or any of those kinds of things. And when I was in graduate school, my very first presentation that I had to give to the class was on the use of self. And I literally said to the class and to the instructor, like, I'm considering right now that I've chosen the wrong field, because what I'm learning is that I'm supposed to be like this robotic, hello, welcome, thank you for coming to therapy today. I see. That sounds very hard. Yeah, that must be okay. Well, pay the lady on the way out, and I'll see you next time. I'm like, that's not me. Like, no one becomes a therapist. This is a generalization, but nobody becomes a therapist because they're like, I just want to help people. I just love people. I want to deal with all of that chaos and Tammy coming to my office trying to like get under my skin.
Tammy's coming at you. Yeah.
There's a book called The Wounded Healer. And I use that term quite often. Sometimes the wounded healer, their wounds are healed. And as a result of their healing, they go, so many people helped me. So many people supported me. And I need to give back. I need to now provide that love and compassion and healing energy to society. Other people who are in that wounded healer realm are still wounded and are avoiding their wounds in trying to heal others. And this may offend some, but when somebody comes to me and says, I'm a healer, like when they say literally, I'm a healer, not me, Chris. Yeah. But when they say, hi, Chris, I'm a healer. I'm like, why'd you have to tell me that? Why'd you have to?
Dang, bro, I wish you would have let
Because in my opinion and in my experience, a healer, an empath, somebody this way, you feel it. You're around them and you go, ooh, there's a light there. This person gets me. Like, what are you thinking about me right now? We're maybe even a little skeptical if we've got some secrets or hidden agendas or like skepticism, whatever it is.
That should be that you shouldn't lead with that, because that should be an energy that precedes you, and people should kind of, there should be a commanding thing about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I look in the space, especially the space that we're in, you know, people are like, oh, I'm a coach. And I know that there's a lot of broken people that are led into coaching, into therapy, and to these help type of service providers, clinicians, because they themselves have been broken. And like you said, they want to heal. But then there's a big lane of people that haven't fixed their stuff yet or dealt with their stuff yet.
Yeah.
And like you said, they're helping others to clean it up. How does a person out there that's seeking a helper, a healer, a therapist, a coach, how do you know? And this is probably, I'm so glad I'm asking you this question. You're not asking me because I don't know the answer. But you've probably met some people and you're like, damn, dude, you should not be a therapist. You should not be a coach. You need a coach. Like, you need to still do some work. But as a person that is seeking help, how can someone know, like, this is the therapist that I should not necessarily work with, or this is a coach that is still not ready yet? How would someone know that?
How would a person out in our world come to, you trust your intuition?
I've had some very angry people on this podcast, and I'm like, girl, you call yourself a damn yikes. I would never want to be your patient. But then it's not always so overt.
When somebody, I think our advertising is like, we've got a Psychology Today ad, and then we have a website. And then I think I've got some social media stuff that I'll be like, hey, we have this and this therapist. We're training these things. Here's how you can call. And I'll get an email or a phone call, and I run this place. I'm the director. I see 5 to 10 clients a week. That's pushing it. That's not even true. Like probably 3 to 7. And I do some supervision with new therapists and younger therapists and students. And you said something before. I want to touch on this, and then I'll continue. There have been times in the past, way back, where I had a student, and I had to go to the school and say, this person's not ready. Here's what I'm seeing. These are my concerns. I believe that there's a path for them to become ready, but they've got to do some work. They've got to do their own inner work. And there have been times where Doppel is the licensing body here in Utah. And there have been times where I've had to communicate with Doppel to say, this person's not ready, but I'm willing to support them and help them get to that point. And that's a hard conversation to have, because that person is immediately going to hate me because I said something like that. Because wow, but the truth is,
their dream and all this money they've invested in school, and they've been told by their grandma that they're really good at it, and here you come. Oh yeah.
The truth is, I might, and it's not, I don't intend to compare and contrast, genuine, like truthfully, but on some level, I love that person more than all those people who are blowing smoke up their rear end, because I'm going to give them the truth. I'm going to come to them and say, here's what I'm worried about. I'm involved with a couple of nonprofit organizations, and we look into ethics quite often. And, it's very sad and devastating to me, the things that unhealed people do to other humans in this world. And I don't think is there an industry where somebody is just a good person and they would never, this kind of person would never do wrong. Like that doesn't exist, from therapists, massage therapists, clergy, law enforcement, the criminal justice system, physicians,
system that
accountants,
is not touched.
Right. Yeah. Because we're human beings. We're flawed. And that's part of it. But that's one of the messages that I wish to present is, it doesn't have to be over. Like, even if a mistake gets made, like, we could do something about this. We can fix this. And it might be embarrassing. It might suck, but we can do something about this.
It's not over. It's not over.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes pride, ego, fear, a lot of different things get in the way. Yeah. But part of my role, and why I share my heart and my spirit with my people, is because I feel like if there's an opportunity for them to feel safe to open up to somebody, That's the control I have. That's the influence that I have. I can't make you tell me all your stories, Tammy, right?
I'm Naja.
But if I can help you feel safe on some level, then you're going to choose to open up to me. And you'll test me. You'll try me.
100%.
You'll tell me something to see if I'll freak out.
Next time you come on, I'm definitely going to test you as Tammy. You better be ready.
Yeah, I'll get a good night's sleep the night before and all of this. But I will say early, go ahead.
You created a safe space and you made me feel like you made Tammy feel like she had a choice.
Yeah.
And Chris, also, I love the way that you listen with such intensity. Even as colleague podcast, but hosting this podcast, but even me pretending to be your client, the intensity by which you listened was so good. That was really good. Okay, what were you about to say though?
I was going to say early in my career, my very first job as a therapist was in a women's prison, and I've got
in Utah.
No.
Oh.
On the west side of Phoenix.
Okay. Ooh.
And I learned a lot, and they tried me. They tested me. They pushed my buttons.
I know they did.
And then when I returned to Utah, I worked at a treatment center where I still, that's still my home. Even though I've got my own place now, it's sacred place for me. But I was on the women's team, so all my clients were females, and they, being in recovery, I was the one male therapist on that team. Sometimes you get thrown into the wolves, and I'll say this, early on in my career, I had some tough clients that, sometimes I might look like dad, or I might look like the ex, or I might look like that authority figure. And so this thing of transference comes up, or projection comes up.
Yep.
Now, therapeutically, we can use that, and that can be so healing and productive if I'm in a good place, if I know what I'm doing, if I'm present, and I have supervision. So I've been a therapist for 15 years. Mm-hmm. I still have therapy. I still have supervision. I still meet every other week. I meet with one of my partners, and we talk about different things. What's coming up for you? What's going on in your world? And sometimes it's professional stuff. Sometimes it's like what's happening, like what's in your personal life, what's coming to the table potentially and impacting your work. Because again, none of us are exempt from that. Yeah. And I had a great mentor. She was in her at least 60s. And we shouldn't guess ages. I'm going to scratch that. We're going to back off of that. I will say that
she's a bit older than you.
She could have retired. And there was an experience where, my very first internship, I was answering phones, like returning phone calls kind of a thing. And I was on the phone with somebody, and they said to me, "Oh, are you the new social worker? Are you the new therapist or whatever on that in the psych ward?" And I said, "No, I'm just an intern." And out of the corner of my eye, I see this sweet woman stand up, like Angela Lansbury style energy. And she comes over, and she's like above me. And I'm like,
"Uh-oh, what did I do?
I'm in trouble." And I hang up the phone. She goes, "Don't ever do that again." And I'm like, "What did I do?" Like, I was nice. And she's like, "You're not just an intern. You're a therapist. You know what you're doing." You said this earlier, and I thought about this. I visited with people who have letters after their name, and they are more intellectual and well-versed. They memorize things better than me. They know the words. Maslow's date of birth and the day that Freud said this and that and all those things. And they don't have something here. Let me change that. Something's missing here. Something's wrong here. Mm-hmm. There's a disconnect. Yeah. And then I interact with people who have no higher education, no licensing in human services or behavioral health or something like that. But here they are beautiful and wonderful. They are healing. And I'll hire those people and get on my team, because that's the energy that we want. We want love and compassion, but we also need good boundaries. And that's something that we don't like in our world. We don't like to set boundaries. We sure talk a lot when someone else violates our own boundaries. We don't like abiding by somebody else's boundaries.
We don't.
We got a double standard.
We get so offended when people say, "Hey, I don't like that. Could you not do this?" That's That's a great conversation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a third. I mean, you have to talk about. Oh, so yeah, we're going to talk about the adults and their uncontrolled emotions and boundaries. Okay, so we have 2 more podcasts to do together.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris, I want you to tell everybody how they could find you, where they could find you. When are you going to write the book? I need to know that for my own self, but just for those of you that want to connect with him, and of course the links are going to be down below, but where can we find you? How can we connect with you?
Probably the fastest. I'm probably on Instagram the most, and that
You're on TikTok too.
TikTok and everything. Most of it is at Chris Wilkins Therapy. I think Instagram, TikTok,
at Chris Wilkins Therapy, and then I'll tag everything. Chris, you don't know the names of your links, Chris.
Well, because some of like X is, I'm not as therapeutic on X or TikTok. Like sometimes I want to share funny things, right? It's like there's some funny stuff that happens in this world, So
you're like, let me just. So I'll send you. I'll tag all your professional pages.
Perfect.
Below, and you're licensed in Utah, correct?
Licensed in Utah. Okay. Trying to get my license back in Arizona. When I moved away from there, I let it expire, and now I'm like, let's get it there, and we're looking at some of the surrounding states because there are some reasons that you couldn't do therapy with somebody in another area of the country, whether culturally or like just socioeconomic, whatever it is. Like you might be out of touch with what the norms are of that area of the country. But there are some movements right now trying to nationalize our licensing because there is a mental health crisis in this world. There is not enough treatment. And
I know it boils down to, with a license that means money. So I know it boils down to how the systems are going to make sure that they get paid when you can take, Chris can be able to take a client and, Mississippi or Tennessee or Arkansas or Arizona. So that's the crazy thing about it. The crisis is being spearheaded by.
Yeah. So I've actually tried to create and cultivate, and this is something we're growing along with. There's actually 6 books in the works right now.
Okay. 6.
And so I'll share that with you. Yeah, there's a lot of different. So some of the books that I read or have read, they felt like a textbook. And so now when I don't have to read it, like, why would I do that? And so I want to design some shorter books that are an easier read on specific topics. So do your dailies. The book should actually be out by Christmas. Knock on wood.
Like a couple months from now. Okay. Yeah. So guys, if you're listening to this like 5 years from now, or today's date is August 2024. So Chris is telling us this book is going to come out in 2 months.
Yeah.
Christmas 2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to hold my feet to the fire.
I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to make a post and I'm just like, Chris, where's the book at? Where's the book?
Okay.
And you're going to send me the link and I'm going to
I'll send you the link.
Yes.
But people can also go to our website. Oh, what I was going to say was you can come visit us in person if you're in Utah and do therapy, but then through behavioral health coaching, we can expand to other parts of the country and other parts of the world. And so I started some recovery coaching groups and consulting groups where we're not doing therapy. And we can, if somebody's interested, we can distinguish the difference between, well, what is therapy? And then what's this coaching thing, And so as a licensed therapist, my role as a coach is very different from my role as a therapist, right?
Right.
But I take that experience, that knowledge, the training and all of those things and apply that. And so we have a mobile app where people can come in and join some of these recovery groups.
Oh, wow.
And not only can you pick my brain and what do I do in this situation, but we're trying to build community of like-minded individuals who want health, who want to improve their life, who want better relationships. And
what is the name of the app, Chris? This is the bomb. That's amazing. And you can serve people everywhere.
Yeah.
Is the app out yet?
Yeah, it's out yet. It's called Hobble Creek Behavioral Health.
Okay.
That's the name of my clinic. We actually just came up with a new logo, and we're going to drop the behavioral because we're starting to add in more of the medical component. We've got a mid-management. We have a nurse practitioner. We're starting to really look at nutrition. More and more, we're looking at sleep hygiene, sleep cycles.
The full service.
We're going to treat the whole mind, body, and spirit. And that's, my goodness, that's cliche out in this world.
It's interconnected anyway, though. Yep. You know, I think it's a great service. I think it's a disservice for you, the human being that I know you to be, to limit yourself to just the one thing. Because you do. just so many facets that you touch. And it is all connected, mind, body, soul. It really is. Yeah. Oh, Chris, you and I could really go on for hours and hours and hours. But guys, Chris is going to come back. And I promised you guys that he was going to come back a couple years ago. And now here we are. Next time, Chris, we ain't going to let it be so long, though. We're not going to let it be so long. That. Well, everybody, listen, I want you to go check out all of Chris's links, and everything is tagged below. As I said, spam him and let him know. Spam him in a good way. And let him know how much you love him. Let him know that you heard him here on I Know I'm Crazy with Naja Hall. And I will see you Tuesday after next, everywhere your favorite podcasts, including this one, are streamed. I know I'm crazy.